Well, everyone is here. Okay, somebody had a theory in this class that most people wouldn't show up because we don't have school Tuesday, so why not make a super long weekend? It looks like you all showed up for my morning of game design, which I love. So, first things first, I'm going to pass out attendance. Go ahead and sign your name in the comments section. If you don't sign, you're marked absent.
That's a good plan, Mr. Mouth.
Yeah, good. Are you sitting? You're sitting in the same spot or a different spot? Same spot? Okay. Just early onset dementia. Don't worry about that. Okay. So we're gonna go ahead and today's gonna be interesting. Actually, this whole week's gonna be interesting since we have Tuesday off. And let's see. Let's get us on the screen here. So on the little clipboard, it has a comment section, and you just sign your name underneath it. So the first, okay, it's another page. Yeah. You just see where other people sign theirs. Yeah. Well, because there's all these sections, just that one says absent, one says tardy. So I prefer you sign in the comment section so the people at the office don't get confused and mark you absent or tardy. So we're going to start today with a video. It's another video from Extra Credits. I think I've shown you one of their videos so far. And this one is called Making Your First Game Basics, How to Start Game Development.
Every year, we get a lot of requests to do sponsored shows, and we end up turning the vast majority of them down. But every once in a while, somebody approaches us and suggests something really interesting, like those Punic Wars episodes we did. It's usually something that as soon as they pitch the idea, we all go, wow, why didn't we think of that? Well, recently, the folks at Unity asked us to do a series on creating your first game. Frankly, I'm actually shocked we haven't addressed that before now, so time to fix that. The truth is, I have run into too many people who at some point decided they wanted to make games, and they picked up an engine, and they started diving in, and they quit before they ever finished their first game because the experience was just frustrating. It seemed like it was going nowhere. And I don't know if we can help, but this team has quite a lot of collective game-making experience, so hopefully some of our advice here will help you avoid the common pitfalls. The first thing you're gonna want to be careful about is scope. Many people pick up a game engine dreaming of making the types of games they play. Unfortunately, this often just is not possible. Games like God of War or Final Fantasy are made by teams of at least 40 people, sometimes way more than 40 people, over the course of several years. Even if you're just amazing and you throw your whole life into creating your game, you're not gonna make a God of War or a Final Fantasy. Not even.
I was debating, I couldn't figure out whether it was this one or the one called Minimal Viable Product, which is similar. So we're gonna watch the Minimal Viable Product one. All right. So, yeah, minimal viable product, what that is the idea of, it's also called a vertical slice. It's where you make something that works, that's playable, and that's about it. It's something that any game developer should be able to kind of whip up in a week. And then you expand upon your game systems after that. So far, I'd say your Slenderman game is about at the minimal viable product stage. You basically have all the features. It's first person, the player can do player inputs like turning light on and off. You have menus. Some of you guys, your characters can now die. You have AI, and you can follow you and stuff. What else? Oh, you pick upable inventory objects. So all of that classify as features that make up what would be called a minimal viable product, right? Minimum, viable, it works, product. Okay. So this will explain a little bit more in detail on that.
During the last 2 episodes, we've stressed how important it is to make your first game something small. But this is so important that this time we're going to dedicate the entire episode to it. This will serve you in good stead not only when you're creating your first game, but also when prototyping for anything else you do. In development, there's a term called minimum viable product, which refers to the smallest thing you can possibly make that'll still give you useful data once released. That should be your goal. Even when James is called in to work on a multi-million-dollar project that has a development time of 3 years, one of the first things he'll tell them is that if they don't have a prototype up in the first 3 weeks, they're doing it wrong. When you can actually play your game, you'll discover all sorts of things that you didn't account for when you were just designing the game in your head. You'll find edge cases where your mechanics are broken, or places where your game just falls apart. You'll find what's really engaging rather than just trying to build something that you hope is engaging, and you'll discover what will add the most to the experience you're creating. Okay, so you've heard me say cut and cut and cut, and that when you think you're done cutting, you're probably not done cutting, but you do have to stop cutting sometime. So how do we determine when we're down to that minimum viable product? Well, this one is a bit tough, and you're gonna get better at it with experience, but the basic idea is to find the absolute minimum set of features that won't affect core development. If you could cut a feature and still technically ship your game, it's probably not part of your minimum viable product. But because this is as much an art as it is a science, let's run through some examples so we're all on the same footing. Let's start with Super Mario Bros. What do we need in order to test if the fundamental gameplay of Super Mario Bros. Is engaging? What's the minimum that we can build and test before deciding if what we have is something worth expanding upon with additional features? Well, do we need Koopas? No. Fire flowers? Nope. Bowser? Nope. Pipes that you can climb down? No. Pipes at all? No. Water levels, mushrooms, hidden blocks, extra lives? No. So what do we need? Well, for Mario, the minimum viable product is probably one level where you can move, jump, and fall into pits. That's it. If just that much is engaging, you'll be able to add all those other features later and make it even better. But if running along and jumping over pits doesn't feel good, Super Mario Bros. Simply doesn't work, no matter how many extra features you throw in. So you've got to make sure that that core is working first. Although, in this particular case, I'd probably throw in 2 other features that aren't strictly necessary, but they will make a big difference. First, a trigger which resets the level if the player falls into the pit, just so testing is easier, and to make sure that this aspect isn't just unpalatable to players. And second, the ability to change from walking to running, since the Mario jump mechanic is so dependent on the run button. But that's it. 1 level, 3 features, and you've got a game. Don't believe something this simple could be engaging? Well, set the character to auto-run and you've basically built Cannibalt. When building your first game, or prototyping a larger one, you'll find that you can strip out all of the content, all of the things that aren't rules that control the play itself, but rather elements that are created out of those rules. So enemy types, levels, different weapons, all of that can usually get cut. You might want to include one thing from each category just to test the larger rules, but no more than that, because it's really easy to get mired down in making all of that content. And the truth is, games with lots of content but without a solid foundation are rarely good. Perhaps worse, as a creator, when your game's packed with content, it's generally harder to figure out why the foundation's not working. If you test your prototype with a lot of content thrown in, it'll be harder for players to put their fingers on exactly what it is that needs improvement, as all of that content just clutters what's wrong, and they'll be more likely to tell you about bad pieces of content rather than the underlying reasons why that content didn't create a positive experience. It just adds complexity in a situation where you really need to be honing your game's core foundation. Okay, so let's try another one. Old school JRPGs. Now this one can fool people because most designers tend to think of these games in terms of content rather than gameplay. It's easy to get caught up in the story you want to tell, or the massive lists of items and enemies. But if the player has to slog through 80 hours of weak gameplay in order to access that story you've got in mind, you've done your player a disservice. In fact, that's some of what's contributed to the decline in the popularity of traditional JRPGs this decade. So take a game like Final Fantasy IV. Here, I would cut everything but the menu-based combat system. I would even cut out all the graphics. Monsters can just be words on the screen. That's really all you need to test the system. Now, many of you might object, saying, but that doesn't work. I can't make that engaging without the content. This is actually great, though. It immediately tells us that we should probably find a more robust system. Alright, let's try one more. This time, let's look at Ikaruga. Here, we could probably cut down to the color switching mechanic, an enemy which switches color randomly and shoots random bullet patterns, or maybe randomly chooses from a small list of pre-built bullet patterns, as that wouldn't be too hard to construct. Also, you'll need the ability for the player to move and to shoot, a counter which ticks upward as you shoot the enemy, and a death mechanic that simply resets the game when the player gets hit. This will get you all the player behavior you need to find out if your game's engaging. Your players will try to dodge and shoot the enemy while attempting to take advantage of the color swapping system as much as possible. That's all you need. Hopefully, that helps you frame your thinking about just how small your first project should be. Now I'm gonna give you a quick and dirty list of game genres, ordered by how difficult they are to create a minimum viable product for. And this is only going to apply to digital games. Some of these genres are actually much easier to build pen and paper or board games for. Also, this list isn't by any means absolute. As game engines change, this list is going to become outdated, but it should give you a place to start at least. So, game genres in order of difficulty to produce a minimum viable product, from simplest to most difficult. Racing game, top-down shooter, 2D platformer, color-matching puzzle game, 2D puzzle platformer, 3D platformer, FPS, JRPG, fighting game, action-adventure, Western RPG, RTS. I'm leaving out point-and-click adventure games here, as those games are entirely built out of content. So while getting a point-and-click game up and running is relatively easy, getting anything together that'll actually tell you if you're onto something engaging is a lot harder. You'll notice I'm also leaving out anything networked or multiplayer, as that generally multiplies the complexity. Honestly, I would just recommend avoiding multiplayer stuff entirely for your first game. And again, don't think of these genres in terms of the games you know. When I say racing game, don't think Gran Turismo. Think 2 gray blocks on a black background with acceleration and collision mechanics. That is all you need to hit that minimum viable product or prototype stage, where you can really start to get it out there and play it and learn what's needed to improve it. You can always build from there later and add more cool features, but your game will be better off for having spent the time testing and refining the foundation of your game idea. This is way more productive than dreaming up a project which is far too big to ever tackle. Hopefully that helps you decide where to start and how far to scope down. Join us on the next episode for what to do once you're done with your game. See you then!
Like I said, we usually think that a game is made within, years, and you would expect 6 months of planning. There is that sort of phase with pre-production, but once production starts, you should have a minimal viable product up immediately, within your first month. Yeah, question? Yeah. So what we're going to do today, guys, is we're actually going to do a week-long project. So today is mostly going to be lab time. I'm going to show you a little bit of one more thing I want you to see in the engine that I think will help you. I will be in Mr. Rendon's classroom for Wednesday and Thursday. So on Friday, I'll be back to grade your projects, okay? So what the project is it's fairly open-ended. For this class, what I want you to do is I want you guys are going to be in teams. And I think you guys got in teams when Mr. Rendon was here 2 weeks ago, right? Yeah, so those are your teams. If you don't have one or you weren't here for whatever reason, just find a team and join it. So make sure you are on a team, not working individually. And what I want you to do is I want you to make a new project, which you all know how to do by now. And it can be anything. It could be kind of, it could be horror related, or it could be something new. You could use a different template, for example. And you're going to make a minimal viable product of the game. And as far as your teamwork goes, each of you are going to pick one of 3 or 4 positions. I'm going to write them on the board. So you have project project manager, programmer, what size are your teams generally? Are they 3 people or 4 people?
I don't know, the maximum has been 4 so far.
A maximum, well, there's 5 or 6. You guys are 3?
No, we're
I
4.
think the maximum was like 6.
6.
Okay.
The maximum was 6.
Let's say 4 minimum, all right? So if you're in a team of 3, try and find someone else. Because what I want you all to do is These are the 4 positions. We have project manager, programmer, artist, designer, or level designer. So I'll describe a little bit what each of these mean. Project manager, your responsibilities are to delegate tasks to the rest of the group. So you guys need to come up with your manager on your own for your team. And that person doesn't need to be like the boss necessarily, but they're going to be responsible for directing the vision of the game. So the project manager is going to go, okay, we're going to do a first-person shooter. It's sci-fi, and it's set on a spaceship that has been taken over by aliens. Okay, so the project manager is going to stay true to that vision. Now, you can all come up with the idea for the game on your own, unless the project manager has good ideas that you agree with or whatever. But once you're in the project manager position, it's your responsibility to make sure that the programmer, artist, and designer stay on task, that they're doing something productively. Programmer is just going to be somebody who's going to be responsible for writing the code, writing blueprint code and everything, or making blueprint objects. You can all help out with this, okay? Because I know this is the most difficult of all the tasks. So by no means should the programmer be alone. Definitely help out the programmer, but they should be responsible for doing that. You can do stuff just from what we've learned, but what I'd like to do is I'd like to see some unique code. So you'll be graded on whether you've done something unique. So if I just see the flashlight turning on and off, it's like, that's not unique code. But if I see you pressing a button and then something else turns on and off, or something else happens, that is unique code. Great. Okay. The artist. So the artist can be responsible for concept art and also working with the project manager to create a vision for the game. So that's cool because this class, actually my first 3 classes, several, have some really good concept artists. One of them's right here. So anybody who wants to be the artist, that would be definitely your strength point. What concept art is that's art that's done basically outside of the engine. It says, okay, this is what this will look like. It's going to be difficult to do that for characters and then get those models into the game because we haven't learned modeling or anything, character modeling yet. But they're welcome to say, okay, this is what this character is going to look like eventually. So this is what the aliens in the spaceship will look like. And so the concept artist or artist is responsible for that. Also, the artist can touch the engine. So they can definitely get involved with all kinds of stuff, designing out those sorts of things. Artist also responsible for UI creation. Okay, programmer, you're responsible for how that UI connects to your widgets, right? But what does that UI look like? Forget if it was this class or another class. I think it was my second period where we were doing the game, and I had the big, horror game, a Slenderman game, or mine's called Horror Hospital or whatever, on top. And they did the same thing with a text widget, and then they wanted it to look good, so they just copied that widget, that text piece, and then offset it slightly and changed them all to different colors. And so it looked like really 3D and cool and scary. I was like asking, where'd you get that font? I didn't show you how to put fonts in Unreal. She's like, no, I just did it this way. That's something that the artist would be responsible for, is that overall look and feeling of the game. Finally, designer / level designer is responsible for how does the level itself work. Now, we've done a lot of this sort of thing. In the viewport, we've done landscape editing, and some of you have even used props and stuff to make little mazes and all kinds of stuff like that. The level designer's primary purpose is just like it sounds, to design out the levels. So, those are the 4 positions. If you have more than 4 people, don't worry. You can have multiple level designers, you can have multiple programmers. You only have 1 project manager. Actually, no. I'll strike that rule. You get more than 1. But you have to have all 4 satisfied. Okay? So, when I'm gone, and Mr. Rendon is here on Wednesday and Thursday, or I guess you just have Wednesday, right? Today and Wednesday. Yeah, I want you to work on that. And on Friday, it'll be real simple. I'll come around my board. I'll say, show me your project. It can be on one person's computer. It's probably the easiest way to do it. That way you can have consistency. So you can do it that way. So if you're like the level designer and the programmer's doing stuff, you could just look at the project and be like, okay, do the programming for 10 minutes, I'm gonna do level designing for 10 minutes and that sort of thing. Now, what am I expecting out of this? I'm expecting a minimal viable product, okay? A new project that looks different from a template, that does something unique, okay? So if you do that, you'll get a passing grade on it. And so it'll work like on Friday, I'll go around, show me your project, who did this, this, and this, and then I'll check mark it. And then the project manager will be responsible for telling the class up here what the project is about, sort of saying, okay, this, what we try to do is this, the goal of the game is this, we encountered this difficulty, we overcome this challenge, whatever. So the project manager will have to present. Everybody else doesn't have to, but that's that. Any questions? Yeah?
Is it okay to, like, looks, like, if we add textures into it, or no? Does that really have to be
What's that about textures?
Like, can we add textures?
Of course.
Oh.
Yeah, go for it, yeah. Yeah, add anything unique to the game. If you find textures online you want to add, go for it. Yeah, definitely. Question. Any other questions? No? Can't wait to it? For Tuesday? He says, can't wait for Tuesday. Okay, so that's going to be that. I'm going to do just a quick mini lesson up here, particularly to help the artists out on this project, because I'm going to show you how to model in Unreal. Nobody, and it's my secret way of modeling. Nobody online, so as far as I know, does this. It's so much faster than using like Maya or Blender or anything. This doesn't work for character modeling, but it works for just about any other type of modeling. So, your project's open, go ahead and follow along. And for some of you that covered this, so some of this will be familiar. It might even be some of these classes I may have covered, I think one or two. Basically, if I want to make some new object, right? I can get objects, remember, from starter content. It's a props folder with all kinds of unique stuff. So maybe I drag this out in here. And I say, this kind of looks like a television. This would be a good sort of like horror television or something. So maybe I make it big so it's kind of like the right size for a television. I drag something else out into here. This is a pane of glass. So I figure, a television needs glass. So I make this an appropriate size. Like that. And then I say, hey, I guess it needs a frame. So I take this door frame out and do it. And basically, I'm putting together a bunch of objects. Right? There's my television, let's say. Let's see, anything that could look like an antenna with these frame pillar things. So if I make this really, really tiny, like 0.05 maybe. I've got a little antenna here. Rotate it a little bit, duplicate it, rotate it again, and now I've got this TV looking thing, okay? So that took like no time. But these are all separate objects, and I can't reuse them because they're not combined. What I'm going to show you right now is how to combine them. So for anybody who wants to make your own custom objects, this is how to make something like a little television set way faster than a traditional modeling program. This is basically one of those industry pieces of knowledge that I'm proud to teach you because it's like it'll save you so much time. So anyway, what you want to do is just select all these objects. So to do that, I hit click on one of them, it highlights yellow. Holding the control key. I don't know if you guys have control key or is it command on the Mac? It's control? Okay, so you're holding control and then you keep clicking. And while holding control, you can keep clicking and it'll highlight every object that you click. So you're adding up objects. And so once you control clicked everything, now if you click away like I just did, then you have to start over. So I gotta go back, hit click, holding on control, click all the objects I want to combine. All right, so now you've got that. What I want you to do is just simply right click on any of the highlighted objects. So I just right clicked right in the middle of the TV. And you get this context menu that comes up. And what you want to find is this thing called merge actors. Merge actors. You know what I didn't do yet? I'm going to click away. I'm going to add some materials to this because why not? That's the other thing I want you to know is you can combine materials on here. So I think maybe an old, let's see, what would be good for TV? Maybe like an old wooden TV or something. No, that doesn't look very good. That's good enough, I think, that metal chrome. And I'll make these copper, these antennas. Okay. All right, so it looks a little bit more like some kind of little TV set. So now that I'm happy with the way it looks, again, you can just control-click all the things you want to merge. Make sure you only click these things, because sometimes you can accidentally, for example, click the sky, and then when you merge it, you're like, what happened? Right? So you only want, and by the way, to unclick something just while you're holding control, and let's say you clicked it, and you're like, I didn't mean to click that, like the floor, just click it again while holding control. Okay, it'll unclick it. But anyway, I like how it is. I right-click on the highlighted objects. I hit this merge actors down here, and it's going to have all these settings. Generally, you leave all these as they are, so you don't have to mess with any of them. Hit in the lower bottom, merge actors. It's going to ask you, where do you want to save it? And I'm going to name mine, because I like to be organized, SM_TV_01. Right? And then I hit save. And now, in your project folders, look at this. There's a television set that you can drag out into your world. You can drag out as many as you want. Brilliant, right? It took like 2 seconds. We just modeled a television set. So that's the modeling secret I've been dying to show you guys. Yeah, question?
So the artist does dark stuff in the game, or do they do it on paper and design and things like that?
They can do both. They can do either.
They can do either?
Yeah, they're the only ones that can do something outside the game and still satisfy the requirements. So they can do just the concept art if they want. But they can also go in and do stuff in the game. The one constraint we're working with is, for most people, you're going to be using one computer per project, which means one person's working on that. I would accept if you guys want to do multiple computers, you can do that and just work on multiple levels, because there's a way to merge that stuff later on anyway. So if you guys are like, oh, you do the spaceship level, that's level 1, and you do level 2 where you crash on the abandoned planet, then somebody on computer 1 start doing the spaceship level, and on computer 2 start doing the level for the other stuff. I'd accept that. So that's that. Any other questions? So that's how you merge actors. So I don't want to waste any more time. We got about, I think, 20 minutes in class. So go ahead and get started right away. Remember, file new projects as you make a new project. And this will be the project you're working on today, Wednesday, and I'll extend on at the end of Friday. I'll check everybody's stuff. And like I said, when we started school, when I started here, no late assignments. So if for some reason you're gone Friday, make sure that you've contributed to the project and that you can, the people on your team can show me and go, oh, okay, hey, he did this, and they can open it up. If not, then the project is a 0 for that person. No partial credit, okay? All right. So that's that. I'll be around answering questions. That's how you do that. Oh yeah, you can get up out of your seats for this, so feel free to move around the room as you plan and stuff, okay?